Star Trek: The Next Generation, Starfleet Academy, Deceptions. Chapter 1. The room was dark, except for a single circle of illumination on one wall. Within that circle, the shadow of a dog's head took form. The dog's mouth opened and closed in a silent barking spree. It wiggled one ear, bobbed up and down a few times, and then its tongue flopped out of its mouth as it started to pant. At least, that was what Data tried to make it do. The problem was that his fingers were already so twisted up he couldn't quite find a free finger to make a tongue. "Data, I be in your presence," came a voice through the darkness. Data already knew that the voice belonged to his roommate, Ju Lanuatabid. And he turned his way to see the small Tanganese cadet standing in the doorway. Data had said time and again that his android ears could hear Zhu's approach from halfway down the hall, and he could even recognize the pattern of Zhu's footsteps, as there was a slight shuffle to his walk because of the higher gravity on Earth compared to that on Tangoni 9. But Tanganese courtesy required Zhu to alert anyone alone in a room to his presence, even when entering his own dorm room. Zhu stared at Data's contorted fingers held up against the light. "What be you doing?" he asked curiously. "I am attempting to form a shadow canine," Data explained, and to illustrate he made his dog bark again. "However, I seem to be in need of more fingers." Zhu chuckled. "You be very odd. Everyone else in the dorm be breaking their skulls studying, and there be you playing with your fingers." Data lowered his hands. "On the contrary, my present activity is part of my extracurricular studies. At various times in Earth history, the manipulation of shadow images has been considered an art form." "As I understand, so be spitting," Zhu countered. "Really?" Data quickly searched his memory banks. No records related spitting with art forms, however. The android shot Zhu a quizzical stare. "Are you certain?" The Tanganese chuckled again. "Data, you be very entertaining. I be glad you be my roommate." Data wasn't sure exactly what that was supposed to mean, but before he could ask, Zhu continued, "I be here to ask a favor. I must take an astrophysics exam tomorrow, and I be wondering if you have time to help me." "Help you what?" Again, Zhu chuckled. Data noted how often Zhu chuckled in his presence and wondered if the Tanganese chuckled as much in the presence of other cadets. "Help me study. What else?" "Oh, certainly." Data tilted his head up. "Computer, normal illumination, please." The lights gradually came up. Data switched off his desk lamp. "What aspect of astrophysics do you wish to review?" "Actually," Zhu replied, taking a firm hold of Data's arm, "my notes be in the study lounge. May we go there?" Data barely managed to say, "Of course," before Zhu pulled him out into the hallway. By now the android was used to helping his dorm mates study. At least once a day, somebody came to him with a class-related question. What year was the Treaty of Alderaan made? What's the atomic weight of itanium? How can I solve Fermat's last theorem? Since Data usually had time to spare, he was more than willing to help. He thought it only fair, since many subjects that cadets found difficult were easy for him, such as math, engineering, history, and hard sciences. On the other hand, in the 3 months since his arrival at Starfleet Academy, Data had noticed that the subjects most cadets found easiest were the hardest for him. Philosophy, cultural studies, and interspecies diplomacy, for instance, often baffled him. Data possessed no emotions, and he struggled with abstract concepts like art, belief systems, or even fashion. He hoped that in time he would experience enough in his own life to finally understand the behavior of living beings, humans especially. Data and Zhu reached the study lounge on the opposite end of the dorm building. Zhu stepped forward to activate the automatic door. When it whooshed open, he politely gestured Data inside. "After you." "Thank you." Data stepped through. to find the lounge filled with the usual assortment of cadets seated at tables, slouched on couches, or even sprawled on the floor, every one of them engrossed in study. But suddenly they all whirled to face him. Surprise! Party hats appeared from under desks and behind stacks of data pads. Several cadets threw confetti in the air, and Cadet Cynthia Gallingston dashed over to Data and plopped a bright red party hat with a goofy green tassel on his head. "Happy birthday," she said, and kissed him on the cheek. Data was unable to react in surprise the way a human could, but his programming compelled him to take a step back, his eyes widening. "You are mistaken, Cynthia," he said. "I am an android. I do not have a birthday." "Oh, yes, you do," said Zhu, accepting a blazing purple party hat from Cynthia. He put it on his head, carefully pushing it back so that it wouldn't cover the intricate tattoo on his forehead. The tattoo signified Zhu's clan and family, and to cover it was taboo among his people. "The day you be discovered on Omicron Theta be, in a sense, your birthday," Zhu continued. "I looked up your records and found the date, exactly 3 years ago today." Data regarded his roommate closely. "You said we were to study for your astrophysics test tomorrow." "Oh, that be just to get you in here," laughed Zhu. "So you do not have an astrophysics test tomorrow?" "No, I do have an astrophysics test tomorrow," Zhu patiently explained. "But I know the material. I just told you I needed your help in order to bring you here without spoiling the surprise." "Then you purposely gave me inaccurate information." Data paused, disturbed. "You lied to me." "No, I didn't." Data opened his mouth to protest, but Zhu held up his hands in surrender. "Okay, I did. Data, a surprise party be pointless unless it be a surprise. This be a case where deception be not wrong. It be like a game." When Data only looked more disturbed, Zhu added, "You often speak of wanting to understand humans. Here be your chance. I researched Earth and discovered that birthdays be celebrated throughout history by almost every society here. Don't you want to experience what it be all about?" Data slowly nodded as his ethics program struggled to justify deceit as a means to a positive end. Unaware of the android's internal dilemma, Zhu and Cynthia guided him to a table where somebody had placed a birthday cake with white frosting and blue trim. Little sugar decorations shaped like machine parts were artistically placed around a line of red frosting that spelled out "Happy Birthday, Data." 3 candles burned brightly in the center of the cake. "Okay, make a wish and blow out the candles," Cynthia instructed. Data looked at her. "Why?" A handsome, dark-skinned human, Waylon Marks, sighed loudly. "Because that's what a birthday boy does. You wish for something, blow out the candles. And if you blow the candles out in only one breath, your wish will come true." Data cocked his head. "What relationship does the termination of a flame have with wish fulfillment?" Everybody groaned. "Just do it," Zhu begged, and the others hooted agreement. Data wondered what to wish for. He could wish to be human, but of course that was impossible. He could wish to know who made him and why, but he was somehow sure that the mystery of his origin couldn't be solved by simple wishing. He finally decided to wish for a successful Starfleet career. After all, he intended to spend a good deal of his life in Starfleet, however long his life might last. He blew the candles out in one breath, and everybody clapped. 5 minutes later, nothing was left of the cake but crumbs. Afterwards, the cadets showered Data with presents. Most of them were silly things, like a squeaking rubber ducky or a gag comm badge that squirted water. Data was fascinated by each item, even though he didn't understand most of them. He intended to ask Zhu about them later. Zhu waited to present his gift just as the party came to an end. "Here," he said, and handed Data a small package. Data carefully opened the wrapping paper and found a memory chip inside a little box. The surface of the chip was inscribed with a miniature version of the tattoo on Zhu's forehead. "In my culture, an inscribed blank book be given to a family member on their day of maturity. The book before their first journal entries." "But I do not keep a journal," Data informed him. "There is no need. My internal memory automatically records every event that I experience in complete detail." "I know that," Zhu said, "but on my world a journal be not used to record events, but one's thoughts and reflections about those events. Ah! Data paused, looking down at the chip in his hand. But I do not need a storage chip to do that either, Zhu. My internal memory can hold. That chip be a symbolic gift, Data. Ah! Data said again. He finally understood that Zhu's gift was actually the suggestion to start a journal. That intrigued the android. He'd often watched Zhu compose his own journal entries, wondering what the Tanganese was writing about. Tanganese tradition required that each mature person keep a journal of their thoughts about the events in their lives, so that each person's life experience could be preserved forever. Celebrating the life of a living person is silly, Zhu had once explained to the android. We Tanganese celebrate the death dates of our ancestors, for only after death can the worth of a life be truly assessed. The degree of celebration for each person be evaluated after death according to families and friends' memories and the journal. Data recalled how Zhu had added proudly, I hope to live a great and honorable life, so that I be celebrated with joy after I be gone. Carefully replacing the box's lid, Data said, This is a most thoughtful gift, Zhu. Yes, I think I would like to start a journal. Zhu beamed with pleasure. Perhaps analyzing your interactions with others be helpful to you in understanding humans and emotions. That night, Data sat at his desk, thinking about all the strange events of the day. Then he created a new file in his internal memory system, labeled it Journal, and began to compose. This will be my first journal entry. I understand that most humans who keep such records begin each entry with a greeting to the journal itself. Although I do not understand why an inanimate object should be addressed thus, I shall follow convention. Dear Diary, my fellow cadets organized a surprise birthday celebration for me today. I still debate whether I actually have a birthday, but the experience was strangely gratifying. Most fascinating was the fact that my roommate, Zhu Lianartabid, employed deception to create the element of surprise. No one at the party objected to such questionable behavior, and in fact, they all seemed quite pleased that the deception succeeded. I will have to study this further. Sincerely, Data. Chapter 2. Of all the classes he was taking that semester, Data preferred xenoethnography the most. A branch of anthropology, it dealt with the scientific description of alien cultures. It never ceased to amaze the android how many life forms existed in the galaxy, how different they all were, and yet how surprisingly similar they were. Xenoethnography was his first class the morning after his birthday party. Just before the class ended, Data's instructor, Aiko Watanabe, made an announcement. Cadets, next week we will not meet for regular instruction, she said. This class and the other 2 xenoethnography classes will embark on a 3-day field trip off-planet. You'll be divided into groups. Each group will travel to a different planet or star base to participate in various archaeological digs and observe how archaeologists run their operations. Such operations are an example of one of the Federation's basic functions, the exploration of new civilizations, whether those civilizations are modern or ancient ones. Each group will be assigned a junior year command track cadet as leader. Your leaders will be contacting you within the next 24 hours to set up a briefing, during which time your group's assignment will be described in detail, and any questions you have will be answered. When you return from your trips, each group will be expected to present a detailed report to the class. Data found himself looking forward to the trip. The last time he'd been off Earth was to observe a super Jovian planet ignition, an event that had become more of an adventure than he'd expected. What might he encounter at an archaeological dig on a far-off planet? That evening, when he returned to his dorm room after classes, he found a message waiting on his compad. Cadet Data, this is E.J. Fantico, your team leader for the xenoethnography field trip. I will be holding a briefing tomorrow evening at 1900 hours in the Excelsior room of Cochrane Hall. Please be prompt. Data turned to Zhu, who was lying on his bed, absorbed in a text on navigation theory. Have you received a communication from your team leader? He asked. Zhu was also taking xenoethnography that semester, though he was in a different class than Data. Yes, Zhu said flatly. It also be from Cadet Fantico. Data brightened. Then we are on the same team. Zhu said nothing. He didn't even raise his eyes from his text. Data waited, but clearly Zhu wasn't going to speak further. Is something wrong? He finally asked with concern. Yes, I be not wanting to go to an archaeological dig. Why? Zhu hesitated. I be afraid. That was the last thing Data expected to hear. Then again, his roommate's fear might stem from the fact that the Tanganese people, though friendly, were known to be shy around strangers. Zhu had been terrified of Data when they'd first met. Then, after they'd gotten to know each other, Zhu had come to depend heavily on Data in most social situations. Data had found it gratifying to be needed in such a way, just as he'd found it gratifying to drill Zhu in standard Federation English. The complex Tanganese language had only one form of the verb to be. So, although Zhu had mastered most other English verb forms, he still couldn't quite master to be. However, with Data's help, he was learning to interact with other cadets more easily. With a troubled sigh, Zhu set his navigation text aside. The remains of the dead should be not disturbed, he said. It be wrong. Why? You have no ancestors, Data. You be not able to understand. But I be afraid to go. You must go, Data said. It is a class requirement. Zhu frowned. Yes, I must go, but I be reluctant to do so. At 1900 hours the next evening, Data and Zhu entered the Excelsior room of Cochrane Hall to find two other freshman cadets already seated at the only table there. One of them, a Vulcan female with piercing blue eyes, said, Greetings, I am Tapira. This is Lucas Whitlock. Lucas, a tall, lanky human with a wide smile, leaned back in his chair and lazily waved his hand. Howdy. Howdy to you also, Data answered, hoping he'd responded correctly. He'd never heard the word howdy before, but it sounded like a greeting. I am Data, and this is Zhu Limno-Tubbet. With sudden energy, Lucas leaned forward. You're Data? The android? Wow. He jumped up from his chair. Can I take a look at you? Before Data could answer, he leaned close up to Data's face as if he wanted to bite his nose. You're a doggone miracle, he murmured, gawking into Data's yellow eyes. Data stared back. What do miracles have to do with absent canines? Huh? Said Lucas. Then he grinned. Absent canines, doggone, he laughed. You've even got a sense of humor. That is incorrect, Data said. I have no sense of humor. I have no emotions at all. Oh, Lucas scratched his chin. Too bad. Funny comeback, though. Tapira tapped Lucas's arm. Such familiarity suggested to Data that she and Lucas were already friends. Lucas, would it not be wise to resume your seat? Cadet Fantico will be here at any moment. Cadet Fantico is here. A young woman strode into the room, short, compact, and pretty, despite the fact that she pursed her lips so hard they turned white. Let's bring this meeting to order. As Data lowered himself into a chair, Lucas whispered in his ear, She's nervous. Data made no reply. For one thing, he couldn't tell if Fantico was nervous or not, and second, he knew better than to make personal comments about superiors, especially in their presence. Good evening, cadets, Fantico began, setting 4 data pads on the table. Let me start off by saying that this trip is designed to be a test for all of us. I need your cooperation to succeed as much as you need mine. If we all do our jobs, I think we can make our instructors and ourselves proud. Data saw that Fantico was following the first rule of leadership, create a sense of good fellowship within the group. He, of course, had no intention of doing anything but his best on this assignment, but he understood that biological beings often required encouragement in order to perform at their best. Our destination is the planet Arunu, Fantico told the group, the 3rd planet in the Carré system. An archaeological team headed by Professor Jeffrey Spinnaker has been there for several months now, studying recently discovered ruins of the Arunuan civilization. Have any of you heard of the Arunuans? Data held up his hand. The Arunuan people are presumed to have existed some 400,000 years ago. Ancient texts from the Ulimfu and Budinji peoples of the 3rd planet of the Carré system speak of a visiting group of silent ones, suggesting that the Arunuans did not speak aloud. Little else is known of them, except that they must have possessed the capacity for limited space travel to have made an appearance on their sister planet. Fantico stared at him. That is correct, Mr. Data. Tapira caught the android's eye, her expression hinting at admiration. Lucas gave Data a thumbs up. Arunu itself, EJ finally continued, is a dead world. No animal or plant life, there is little water, and none of it is drinkable. The archaeological team comprises the only life on the entire surface. You will all be required to wear oxygenation masks while there. The air is breathable, but its oxygen content is far too low to support human life for more than a minute or two. Fantica turned to Data. Even though you don't need to breathe like biological life forms, Mr. Data, you will be required to wear a mask as well, as per standard Starfleet regulations for cadets. Of course, sir, Data responded, though I must correct your information. Although I do not need to breathe for survival purposes, a periodic intake of air is necessary to cool my internal systems. This time Fantico smiled. I stand corrected, Mr. Data. You're quite a fount of explanations, aren't you? I endeavor to be, sir, Data declared. Fantico continued. Okay, each of you is responsible for arranging leave from your other classes. This field trip is an established freshman venture, so your other instructors shouldn't give you any trouble. However, you will be responsible for keeping up with your other classwork while away. Each night you will receive your homework assignments by subspace communique, and each morning you must relay your finished assignments back. Understood? Data and his peers nodded. Well then, take these data pads with you, and she handed them out. They contain guidelines for your preparations. We'll leave the Academy grounds by shuttle at 0700 next Monday, then transfer to the USS Ajax for the remainder of the journey. Any questions? Zhu shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Sir, how extensive be the Arunu dig? Quite extensive. Professor Spinnaker's team has already exposed 5 square kilometers of major city. I've included more information in your packets. And she indicated the data pads. If there are no further questions, you are dismissed. During their walk back to the dorm, Data tried to engage Zhu in conversation, but the Tanganese gave only short, clipped responses. Clearly, he didn't feel like talking, so Data decided to log his thoughts about the briefing in his journal. Dear Diary, today I met the other members of my field trip team. Cadet E.J. Fantico would appear to be a competent leader, despite the comment from Lucas Whitlock that she looked anxious. Lucas himself is very open and friendly. I look forward to working with Tapira, whose logical assessment of the dig operations should be most illuminating. I wish to mention, however, that Zhu is still unhappy with our assignment. I can only hope that he will find something positive in the experience. Sincerely, Data.